The third anniversary of this YouTube channel is fast approaching, and thinking back on what's happened since August of 2017, there's a question that really stands out to me. Why did I start this channel in the first place? It's certainly not a question of natural talent. I'm not a great artist or animator, I've never been a journalist, and my recording and editing skills are just average. Compared to the great gaming videos I've watched over the years on YouTube, the videos I've made aren't nearly as impressive. I can't compete with the most talented and professional gaming YouTubers out there, and my subscriber count reflects that. But on the other hand, am I really competing with those other channels? I don't actually view my content as being much like theirs. I try to be as professional as possible, but the fact is that for me, YouTube is a hobby, not a job like it is for them. I'm an amateur, and that word has a lot of negative connotations these days, but what it literally means is that I do what I love. And that's what it really comes down to. I make the kind of videos I would enjoy seeing if someone else made them. In fact, I used to enjoy watching videos a lot like mine, back when other people still made them. The real reason I made this channel in the first place is that 3 years ago I started noticing something about YouTube. It wasn't as much fun as it used to be. Many of the channels I really liked had stopped uploading. Others stuck around, but uploaded so infrequently that I couldn't count on them for entertainment. And the most successful among my favorite channels generally became successful by completely changing their content, their style, and their intended audience. I was feeling really down and really bored. YouTube had been my main source of entertainment for nearly a decade, and now it was transforming before my eyes into something barely recognizable. Eventually it got to the point where spending an hour searching for a high-quality video to watch was less fun than using that time to make a low-quality video of my own, and that was the nucleus of this channel. But what about all those other channels? What happened to them? What made me lose interest in being just a viewer of YouTube content? The short answer is, they changed. The somewhat longer answer is that pretty much all of them now fit into one of 5 categories, which I like to call the 5 reviewers you meet on YouTube. First we have the professional. This is a reviewer who has graduated from doing YouTube as a hobby to doing it as a full-time job. YouTube ads, Patreon, and more recently corporate sponsorships have made this a lucrative choice for lots of content creators, and they often double dip. I'm familiar with at least half a dozen channels that have a Patreon account, ads on their videos, and paid sponsorships. What this means is that these reviewers are no longer simply creating content. They're also running a business. When they use all 3 sources of funding, this also splits their priorities across 3 very different clients: the superfans who donate to them, YouTube's internal ad policies, and the demands of corporate sponsors. In this climate, the ordinary viewer, whose only stake in the channel is watching ads, is left out of the loop. It doesn't take long for the content itself to change as well. More frequent uploads, more industry hype and current events commentary, less controversial and independent opinion giving. It's easy for a professional to become detached from the average viewer while juggling the conflicting needs of a profitable YouTube channel. The best example I have of one of my favorite channels going professional is Arlo. My disagreements with Arlo have cropped up on this channel before, but you may be surprised to know that I still largely respect and admire his work. Arlo is funny, good-natured, and occasionally has some really insightful things to say. I don't watch him as much as I used to, but I do still visit his channel from time to time. The trouble is that while Arlo is occasionally great, now that he's a professional, he is always on the air. Many of his videos are hype and speculation for things that haven't even happened yet. He's much more topical and rambling than he used to be, and the content suffers for it. I think it also has to be said that receiving free games from Nintendo to review, when he could easily afford to buy them himself, was a bad decision that tarnishes an otherwise sterling reputation. Watching videos made by professionals often leaves a bad aftertaste in my brain. They're just a little too glib, too commercial, too focused on riding trends and soliciting engagement instead of saying something deep or personal. You'll always find something to watch on one of these channels, but that doesn't mean it'll be worth watching. Second on our list is the free spirit. This is someone who stopped reviewing video games as a hobby in order to review something else as a hobby. They don't necessarily treat their channel as a job, although many do have profitable channels. It's just that video games no longer interest them as a topic of conversation. Instead, they turn to TV shows, movies, celebrity culture, internet drama, or a dozen other things. Channels that review a very specific type of video game are often in danger of turning into free spirits as soon as they run out of games they want to talk about, which happens faster than you might think. Other content creators just lose interest in their original approach, or decide that topics other than video games will get them more views and attention. Sometimes these pivots away from video game content can lead to amazing new directions for a channel that's grown stale. Brutal Moose is a great example. This is a channel that talked about PC games for several years, but more recently Ian has been really entertaining on the subject of frozen dinners and old recipes. Unfortunately, channels that do this can also take a turn for the worse. For instance, I don't know how any of you feel about JonTron's recent work, but as far as I'm concerned, none of it comes anywhere close to his video game reviews. Is he still funny? Sure, but now the humor is forced and stilted, not freewheeling and unique like it used to be. I'd be the last person to tell content creators they can't branch out. I mean, what I'm doing right now isn't strictly video game related. But it is always sad to me when a great video game channel moves away from games entirely, even when the new content is enjoyable, and especially when it isn't. Finding a new direction shouldn't have to mean forgetting where you came from. Next up we have the streamer. This is a person who's looked back on the hours they once spent writing, recording, and editing their past videos and said, nah. Making videos is a lot of work. Streaming really isn't. You just fire up a game, start playing, and say whatever pops into your head. Because they get to see you play in real time, and even communicate with you if you read the chat, your viewers will generally be just as pleased as if you'd made a Let's Play video. Maybe even more so. Now, most YouTubers who become streamers don't completely stop uploading content to YouTube. They just stop uploading original content. Instead, they upload content taken from their streams. If you're lucky, these will be edited highlights, showcasing the funniest and most interesting moments. If you're not, the content creator will upload entire hours-long streams to their channel with no editing and no effort invested. So lame. Twitch hasn't actually taken out many of my favorite review channels, but what really twists the knife is that it has sucked up a lot of my favorite Let's Players, including the best ones from the golden age of Something Awful. I can't blame these guys for doing what gets them the biggest rewards, but blame or not, I just don't watch them anymore. Number 4 is The Hermit. Hermits are content creators who actually have preserved their original approach and style. What's changed with them is upload frequency. Where they once might have uploaded a video every week and a half or so, now they upload once every couple of months at best. To these people, YouTube is still a hobby, but it's clearly not their number one hobby. It's a back burner kind of thing that they get to occasionally. Hermits have a certain amount of overlap with the free spirit. Many of them don't upload often because they can't think of much to talk about anymore. Unlike professionals, they don't have a constant drip feed of current events to sustain their interest. Many of these reviewers are more interested in the past than the present. A lot like me, actually, now that I come to think about it. The most hermitish YouTuber I still watch would probably be Matthew Matosis. I've had a lot to say about this guy before. He's the reason the main video for this side note even exists. But I want to clarify one thing. I don't disrespect Matthew Matosis, not even in the mild way that I disrespect Arlo for some of his decisions. As far as I'm concerned, Matthew Matosis has been consistently enjoyable through his whole career. Except when he's stupid and wrong, obviously. However, what he has done is severely reduce his upload schedule. Even though his major videos are very professionally made and very long, early in his YouTube career he was capable of making 15 of them over a 1-year period. Over the last several years, his average has been more like 3 or 4 per year, and he's quite capable of going 6 months without uploading anything. On more than one occasion, I was convinced that he was gone for good. Speaking of which, that brings us to our 5th and final type of video game reviewer. Someone who actually is gone for good. I call these reviewers phantoms, and they're by far the most depressing cases of all of these. Phantom channels start by making content like any other gaming channel, building up an audience and developing a profile, and then one day they just disappear. Sometimes there's an announcement explaining why this is happening. More often, there's just silence. I remember when the brothers Chaps, creators of Homestar Runner, went on a years-long hiatus with minimal communication between them and their fans. In the early days of that unexpected hiatus, I felt much the same way as when one of my favorite channels stops uploading. The difference is that the brothers Chaps and Homestar Runner did eventually return, albeit in a much reduced form. But most of these channels aren't coming back at all. I can complain about lots of things. I can criticize the professionals for selling out and lowering their standards. I can lament that free spirits have abandoned video games and left me out in the cold. I can fume over the streamers and hermits who make me wait half a year to see something good on their channels. But the fact is that in all these cases, I really should be counting my blessings, because a channel turning into a phantom is so much worse. Before I get back to the main video, I want to take a moment to remember the names of some great YouTube channels that have left us over the past several years. It's a Dog and Game, Mr. B-Tongue, You the Player, Perils of Pokey, Blatherbot Reviews, Frothy Pog's Video Game Show, and of course, Original JonTron, May he rest in peace.